Thursday morning, my wife Kathy and I were getting ready for work. She said, "I have a client coming tonight around 6 p.m., so I'm going to take my car today. They want to see the big room. I guess they're planning a big wedding." Kathy works in event sales at a large hotel downtown, part of a national chain where we both work. She helps companies set up conferences, parties, and meetings. She also works with people planning weddings, confirmations, and other special events. Kathy usually works Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., but sometimes she meets clients after work or on Saturdays. Most companies like to meet during the day. I work at the same hotel as an assistant manager in engineering. Me and 5 others make sure everything runs smoothly. We fix lights, plumbing, heating, air conditioning, and even the pool. Someone from engineering is always around, but if a big problem happens, we all might have to help, even at night. I take care of planned maintenance and work with officials who check the pool, sauna, elevators, kitchen, fire alarms, and such. I usually don't handle quick fixes, and if there's an emergency after hours, I'm rarely the one called. Because of our schedules, Kathy and I normally drive to and from work together. I asked her about her meeting. "What time will you be home?" It depends on what they want. Looking at the space and then talking about food, flowers, music, and photography usually takes a couple of hours. If they don't like the space, I'll be home around 7 p.m. Don't wait for dinner. I'll get something from the lobby coffee shop. Kathy paused for a moment and added, "Keith, don't forget tomorrow night is girls' night." Girls' nights happen about once a month. Kathy and her friends go out for drinks and dinner at a nice restaurant with a bar. They meet after work, and Kathy usually gets home between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. I asked, "The usual group?" "That's Joan, April, and Marcy, her close friends." Kathy nodded. "I have been working at the hotel since I finished college about 7 years ago. Kathy got her job in event sales 6 years ago after college. We met when she started, and we got married 2 years later. From the moment I met Kathy, I liked her a lot. She is blonde, about 5 feet 6 inches tall, slim, elegant, beautiful, smart, and funny. I make a good income, and Kathy earns a salary plus commission from her sales. We are doing well. We own a 3-bedroom condo and have recently started talking, just a little, about having children. But we are still in our 20s, so we have plenty of time to start a family." That night, Kathy came home from a client meeting around 9 p.m. She was wearing the same clothes as in the morning, but there was something different about her. She looked very bright and fresh. Her skin seemed to glow, her hair was perfect, and she wore very little makeup, less than when I saw her at 5 p.m. Sometimes, when she had a late meeting, she looked more refreshed than when I said goodbye to her earlier. Tonight, she definitely did not look like she had worked for 12 hours. I asked, "How did it go?" "They liked the event space," she said. "I told them all about it, and we talked about the options they can choose. The wedding is in about 5 months. They are thinking of 200 guests, so it could be a good commission. They're still deciding, but I think they were impressed. If they want to have the wedding in 5 months, they have little time to book the venue and everything else. I should know more in a week or 2. "Did you go anywhere after the meeting?" I asked, still sitting in the living room while she warmed water for tea in the kitchen. She turned to look at me and studied my face for a moment. Then she said, "No, I came straight home. Where would I go?" "You just look like you freshened up, like you took a shower," I said. "After they left, I washed my face and brushed my hair, but I really came straight home. The couple brought both sets of parents to see the space, plus their wedding planner. Everyone had a lot of questions. Now I'm going to make some tea, take a long bath, and then go to bed." "You're welcome to join me," she said with a smile. "In the bath or in bed?" I asked. "Either or both," she replied playfully. On Friday, Kathy wore her usual work clothes, but brought a dress to change into later for a night out with her friends. I went to see her at her office after work before I left for home. She had changed into a black dress that fit her closely. It was a new dress, and it came to mid-thigh with a halter top. She looked very ready for a special night. She had spent some time doing her hair and makeup just right. I asked, "Where did you get that dress? Why are you dressed up? Where are you going?" "I bought it earlier this week. Do you like it?" she asked, as she spun around a little. I nodded. "Our friend Marcy told us to dress in our nicest outfits for tonight," she said. "Is it too much?" I thought. Yeah, it's probably too much for a married woman to go out without her husband. But I asked anyway. "Just drinks and dinner? What else would we be doing?" Acting single tonight? Kathy laughed and held out her left hand, showing her engagement and wedding rings. I'm happily married. I'm not taking off my rings for any man. Where are you going? I don't know. Marcy is in charge of finding a place and making reservations. She wants it to be a surprise. I have no idea what she's planned. If it feels too wild, I'll be home early. I'll know more when we get there. Want me to text you where we're eating? No need. You'll tell me when you get back. Uber home? My car is in the hotel garage. If we're not too far and I haven't had too much to drink, I'll drive home. Otherwise, I'll call an Uber. Text me if you'll be late or if you want me to pick you up. Always do. I kissed her cheek goodbye. She gave me an air kiss, careful not to smudge her lipstick. We both left, me going home, her going to meet her friends. At home, I changed clothes and decided to get some beer and pizza for dinner. I called our favorite pizza place to order takeout. On the way to pick up the pizza, I stopped at a store to buy beer. The pizza place is a favorite family spot. I went inside to pay and wait for my pizza. While I waited, I looked around the dining room. There sat Marcy with her husband Bill and their 2 kids, enjoying dinner. That was Marcy, the same Marcy who was supposed to surprise Kathy and the other girls with their plans for their night out. Kathy is close friends with Marcy, Joan, and April, but we don't really hang out with them or their husbands often. Maybe a barbecue or 2 a year, and the neighborhood party every year. For some reason, Kathy never seems excited about inviting those friends and their husbands over. We rarely have social time with them as couples. Even Kathy's 3 women friends don't come to our place much. That works for me. I don't know them very well, and I'm happy socializing with Kathy and the friends I grew up with. I walked over to say hello to Marcy and her family. Marcy wore a simple t-shirt and jeans, nothing fancy. After a quick greeting, I asked, I thought you were going out with the girls tonight for girls' night. Marcy blushed, looked at Bill, then back at me. Well, I was supposed to go, but the kids and Bill wanted a family night. I thought that was more important this time, so here we are. She looked from me to Bill, who looked a little puzzled, and then back at me, smiling nervously. I said, I thought you were picking the place for girls' night tonight. Do you know where they went? No. I think it was Joan's turn, not mine. I don't know where they decided. She looked at Bill, who seemed upset, then back at me. I said, enjoy your dinner, grabbed my pizza, and left. What is going on? I didn't hear from Kathy, so I decided to wait until she got home to ask. But she didn't come home that night. Around 1:20 a.m., she sent me a text. It said, I ate something that made me sick. I also drank too much. I feel dizzy and have been throwing up. We had dinner near the hotel, so I got a room there. I spent 2 hours in the bathroom. I just want to sleep, so I'm crashing here. Don't worry, I'll be fine. I'll be home in the morning. Love you. This was very strange. She never acted like this before. I thought maybe I should find her room number and go check on her. Since I work in hotel maintenance, I have access to all the rooms. I looked on the hotel system to find her room, but she wasn't registered. There was no room in her name. I checked if maybe Joan or April booked a room for her, but nothing showed up. It would be unlikely that the front desk gave her a room without registering it, because that could get them in trouble. The hotel always keeps track of who stays in each room and makes sure it is paid for. So, where was she? I was sure when she texted she meant our hotel. If she wasn't registered, maybe she was in someone else's room at the hotel, or at another hotel, or someone's home. I had no choice but to wait to ask her when she got back. Kathy came home around 7 a.m. and woke me up. No makeup, hair tied back in a ponytail, wearing the clothes from the day before. Not the nice dress she wore when she went out. She said she felt better, but had a strong headache and still felt a bit sick. She didn't sleep much the night before. I asked, "What did you do last night?" She said, "I'm really tired. Let's talk later. I just want to sleep for a long time." I said, "You look tired, but you seem okay." She looked worried, but said, "I showered at the hotel before I left to feel better. I need to rest for a few hours." She changed into a t-shirt and got into bed. She looked very tired, but not sick. I asked, "What happened to the black dress you wore last night?" She said, "I wasn't feeling well and had to change out of it. I left it at work to get cleaned." "Why are you asking so many questions? Please, just let me get some sleep. If you want to talk, we can do that when I wake up." I went downstairs and waited to talk with her. While I was waiting, Marcy's husband, Bill, called me around 8:30 in the morning. I answered the phone. Bill said, "Hey, Keith, Marcy wants to talk to you. Hold on." Then he gave me the phone. Marcy said, "Hi, Keith. Sorry to call so early. If this is a bad time, I can call you back later." I said, "No, it is fine. What's going on?" Bill said in the background, "You didn't mislead him. You lied to him." Marcy went on, "Bill is really upset with me. I told you I skipped girls' night, but I did not know there was one last night. When you asked why I wasn't with Kathy, I thought maybe the others planned a girls' night and I was not invited. But April and Jake are visiting Jake's family, and I just talked to Joan. She was home last night. So, no one knew about a girls' night." I asked, "Then why didn't you just say you didn't know anything about girls' night when I asked?" Marcy replied, "I'm sorry, Keith. It was just a quick automatic answer, like girl code or something. Kathy didn't tell me to lie if I saw you. We never talked about girls' night. I was really surprised when you said Kathy went to one." She sounded worried when she said, "I know this looks bad, but maybe Kathy went out with some other women. Maybe some women from work." I said, "She told me she was going out with the three of you." Marcy said, "I'm sorry, Keith. I don't know what else to say. I'm sure there's a good reason." Anyway, Bill is very angry that I didn't tell you the truth, and I agree I did not handle it well. "I'm sorry again. Is everything okay with Kathy? Did she get home all right?" Then Bill spoke. "Marcy, give me the phone." He got on and said, "Keith, are you upset that I called you?" I said, "Dorothy, no. Why would your call upset me?" Bill said, "That's what Marcy thought would happen. All four of them are very close, but they don't want us husbands talking to each other. I told Marcy she had to call you and admit she wasn't honest with you, but she kept saying she was afraid you'd be mad if I called. That's just not true. We argued about this and other things all night. They are very close, but they don't want us husbands to know what they are doing." Bill went on, "Marcy lied about Kathy. As soon as you left the restaurant last night, she took out her phone to call Kathy and warn her you were asking about the girls' night. I stopped her from doing that. I'm not sure I want to be with someone who lies for her friend and tries to warn her when her husband is suspicious." I heard Marcy say quietly, "Don't say that, Bill. I wasn't covering for her. I was surprised that Keith asked about a girls' night. I wasn't calling to warn her. I just cared about her and wanted to make sure she was okay." Bill said to Marcy, "That's not true. You four always cover for each other. I think you're all hiding things from your husbands." Then he said to me, "I'm actually happy this happened. Not because Kathy lied about the girls' night, but because I'm finally seeing my wife clearly. I went through Marcy's phone and found out she has a work husband. She's been having lunch and dinner with him. She even calls him hubby, and he calls her wifey. She says she's working late, but she's really with hubby. He's her boss, a rude man named Roger. On Monday morning, Marcy has to tell HR about an inappropriate relationship between her and Roger." He stopped and looked at Marcy. "Isn't that right, Marcy? You're going to get Roger in trouble, aren't you?" I heard Marcy say, "It's nothing. I can just tell him to stop with the hubby and wifey stuff and no more lunches and dinners. It's not that serious. We don't have to ruin his job over this." Bill said to me, "See? She cares more about hubby than about me. I don't think they've gone too far yet, but they were heading there." Then he turned back to Marcy. "You either go to HR on Monday and file a complaint, or you're out of this house. I won't compete with some rude boss for my wife. If you care more about his job than us, then don't go to HR and see what happens to our marriage." I heard Marcy say, Okay. I told you. I'll file the complaint. It just doesn't seem necessary." Bill said, "It is if you want to stay married to me." Marcy replied, "You know they could fire me, too." Bill answered, "Probably not. You're the one being taken advantage of, not the boss. But if you do get fired, maybe your next job can just be about work, not anything else." I asked, "Does Marcy know what Kathy really did last night?" Bill said to Marcy, "Keith wants to know what Kathy was actually doing last night." I heard Marcy answer, "I don't really know. I haven't talked to her, but I'm sure it was nothing bad." I said, "I guess we'll find out." We hung up. Kathy was still asleep upstairs. She had already lied to me about the girl's night, so any questions about where she was would probably lead to more lies. She wasn't in her own room at the hotel last night, so was she at the hotel at all? If so, whose room was she in? I logged back into the hotel's system and looked at the list of guests from last night, hoping to find someone I knew or that Kathy might know. I scanned through names until I found Alexander Kemp. Kathy dated a man named Alex Kemp when she was in college for almost 3 years. I wasn't sure if this was the same person. I looked up his reservation details. A pharmaceutical company had booked his hotel room, and the charges were sent to that company. He checked in on Thursday afternoon and left about an hour before Kathy got home this morning. Alex Kemp might be a common name, so I wasn't sure if it was the same guy. Kathy was very close to Alex in college, and I think they even talked about getting married. But after graduating, they drifted apart. She told me they just went their own ways. I didn't ask for more details. I looked him up on his company's website. That's the company that paid for his room. He works as a sales representative, and his sales area includes where we live. Then I checked his Facebook. There were photos of him with a wife and 2 kids. He also graduated from the same college and year as Kathy. So, Kathy had spent last night with her ex, who is now married. Kathy got up and came downstairs around noon. She looked very tired. Spending the night with her ex must have been hard on her. She smiled at me, and I asked, "How are you feeling?" "I feel terrible," she said. "Still hungover and my stomach hurts. I think I ate something bad, and I drank too much, which didn't help. Can we just take it easy today? I don't want to do anything." She went into the kitchen, filled a cup with water, heated it in the microwave, then put a tea bag in it. When she was about to head back upstairs, I stopped her. "We need to talk. Sit down," I said. I pointed to the couch. She hesitated. "I thought I'd take a shower first. It might help me feel better." "Sit," I insisted. She sat down, and I took a chair across from her. She looked worried and asked, "What's wrong?" "Where were you last night?" "I got sick, so I stayed at the hotel. I texted you. Did I forget to send it?" She got up to get her phone, which was charging in the kitchen. "Sit," I said again. "I did get your text, but where exactly were you? What did you do? Who were you with?" She looked even more nervous. "You know where I was and who I was with. Marcy, April, and Joan. We had some drinks and ate at Chez Andre, the French restaurant near the hotel. I got really sick, so they took me back to the hotel. I was sick for a long time, but I texted you before going to bed. I didn't sleep well, took a shower, and then came home. That's all. I picked up some pizza from the local place," I said. "Guess who I ran into? Marcy was there with her family." Kathy didn't say anything. She just stared at me, trying to figure out how to respond. Finally, she said, "I'm still really sick and dizzy from the food poisoning, and I forgot Marcy canceled at the last minute. She's always with us on girls' nights, so I just said she was there without thinking." "So it was just April, Joan, and you?" Kathy nodded. I went on. "Marcy said Joan was at home last night and April is out of town visiting family." Kathy looked at me with wide eyes, scared. She didn't say anything. I had more questions. "Where did you sleep last night? Your name isn't at the hotel." Kathy began to cry. I gently asked, "How is Alex Kemp? Was he the same as you remembered? How many times did you spend time with him last night?" Kathy collapsed on the couch, curling up and covering her face, crying hard. This lasted about 5 minutes. I waited quietly. Finally, she spoke between tears. "He hurt me. He gave me something. And then he hurt me." Her crying grew louder again. After a while, Kathy was calmer but still crying. Still curled up, she said softly, "He called me at work out of nowhere. I hadn't seen him in years. He said he wanted to catch up. He was going to be in town and staying at our hotel because his company works with them, so I thought, why not have dinner? We'd talk, and that would be it. I'd be home and in bed by 11 at the latest. We met at the French restaurant I told you about a couple of blocks from the hotel. I picked that place because I thought we'd avoid running into anyone from work. No one from the hotel eats there. And if I did see someone, I'd say Alex was my brother. It's hard to explain a nice dress if he's your brother. Yeah, well, I thought no one would be there. We ate and talked. When we finished, he wanted to have a drink at the bar. He didn't want to go back to his room yet. I thought, one drink, no big deal. I asked him to get me a Tom Collins and went to the bathroom. We had the drink and left. He offered to walk me to my car in the hotel garage. We were going the same way and would split up near the hotel. He'd go inside, and I'd go to the garage. But halfway there, I started feeling strange. My body felt weak. I couldn't control my muscles, and I was confused about where I was or what I was doing. I remember him holding me up around my waist while I tried to walk. Then, the next thing I know, I'm lying down and I don't have control over what's happening. I stayed where he left me. I remember some parts of what happened, but most of it is a blur. I woke up this morning, and he was gone. His bags were gone, too. I managed to get out of bed and took a shower. That helped me feel a little better. Then, I went downstairs to my office. No one was there because it was early on a Saturday. I changed into the clothes I wore to work yesterday and took an Uber home. I didn't think I could drive. Kathy started crying loudly again. I was shocked. I hadn't expected this. I sat next to her on the couch and held her close. She buried her face in my chest and cried. I asked if she was hurt, if he had hit her. She said she didn't think so. She felt really sick, like she had a bad hangover and was still confused. She couldn't remember much. I said, "We need to go to the hospital to get tested. We need to find out what happened and call the police. This man should not be free." Kathy paused for a moment, then said, "I just want to sleep. I feel awful. I don't want to go anywhere." I said, "We can't ignore this. Let's get you dressed and go now. I know this is hard, but think about other people who might get hurt if we don't act." She said, "Can we wait until I feel better? I don't have the strength for this right now." I told her, "I don't know how long the medicine in your body will stay. We need to get tested soon to prove what happened so they can help you and stop him. The hospital might also give you something to help you feel better. If you need help getting dressed, I will help you." I helped her upstairs and got her dressed. I called the police, and they said a detective would meet us at the hospital. They told me to explain it was an assault, so they could send a specialist to help with the tests. We told the hospital staff why we were there. They gave Kathy a room and started her exam. I waited outside. Kathy later told me they took blood, urine, and other samples for testing. Detective Martin arrived just as the exam finished. She spoke quietly with the nurse who cared for Kathy. Then she came over to me and gave me her card. She said, "I need to talk to Mrs. Gibbons alone. Please wait in the waiting room. I'll call you when we're done." She went into the room with Kathy, and I waited. About 20 minutes later, the detective called me back. She said, "As I told Mrs. Gibbons, the test results should come back by Monday." They tested for about 50 different substances. She also had a check for certain infections, but those results would take longer. The officer said, "Mr. Kemp, the man you're saying gave you something without your knowledge, Mrs. Gibbons, works in drug sales, so he might have access to medicines. He lives in a different state, so this is what we will do. If we find drugs in your blood or urine, police where he lives will talk to him. I've sent a patrol car to check Mr. Kemp's hotel room, number 1214, and asked a team to inspect it. The room might already have been cleaned or used by other guests, but we will still follow the usual steps. I've also asked officers to get the hotel cameras. You said you think you and Mr. Kemp entered through the parking garage around 10 p.m., so we'll ask the hotel for videos from the garage, elevators, and the 12th floor. Hotels usually help the police, especially if crime is involved. If the hotel does not help and we find drugs in your system, we will get permission from the court to get the room and videos, but I think the hotel will cooperate. You changed your clothes from last night and left your dress in your hotel office. The team will pick up the dress for testing. You wore the underwear you had on when you left, and since you said those haven't been washed, I'd like you to keep them in a plastic bag and bring them with you tomorrow when you give your official statement." The officer continued, "You think you were given something after 9:30 p.m. It is now about 17 hours later. Depending on how much was given, the drugs might still be in your body. The tests will show us what they were. Now we wait for the test results and review what we find at the hotel." "Do you have any questions?" I asked. "What will happen to Mr. Kemp?" The officer replied, "If the tests show drugs, detectives from his area will talk to him. He may say the time with you was agreed upon by both of you. He might also say that one or both of you took drugs willingly, or that you took something without him knowing. We want to have all the proof and test results before we question him. They gave Kathy something to help with her headache, and we went home. She seemed a little better. On the way, I asked her, "Why did Martin ask me to leave when she came to talk to you?" She said, "In case I wanted to say something I didn't want you to hear." She helped me go over what happened. Then they called you. I asked, "Why did you not tell me the truth? Tell me you said you were going out with the girls when you knew you were going on a date with Kemp." "It wasn't a date. We were just catching up. I didn't tell you because it wasn't a big deal. I was just going to have dinner with him, see what he has been doing since college, and then come home. I'm not interested in him that way. I didn't lie. I just didn't mention that I was meeting him. I knew you'd be upset. And look how upset you got when you found out I had dinner with him. It wasn't worth upsetting you, so I didn't tell you. Nothing was supposed to happen. I didn't know he had changed into someone dangerous. I was upset because you didn't tell me the truth. You didn't tell me because you thought I would say no. I didn't really lie. I just forgot to tell you. I left that part out. I was trying to keep us from a big fight. You would have gotten upset, and we would have argued over nothing. I didn't want to start a big fight over a 2-hour dinner with someone I haven't seen in years and who doesn't mean anything to me now. That would have been silly. So it was better to lie to me? I didn't lie. I just didn't say anything. I didn't want to make you worry for no reason." She sighed. "Honey, I just can't do this now. Can we talk later?" I stopped there. I didn't like that Kathy didn't tell me about meeting her ex, but now wasn't the right time to argue. Kathy was barely awake in the passenger seat. She had been through a lot in the last day. When we got home, Kathy went straight to bed. She told me not to wake her for dinner. I thought to myself, Detective Martin might need a warrant to look at the hotel videos from last night, but I don't. Since I work in maintenance, I have access to everything in the hotel. There are cameras in almost every public area. Everyone who works here knows where they are. Everyone also knows that no one watches the cameras live. The video recordings are saved only if something happens, like an accident or a problem that needs to be recorded. Usually no one looks at the videos, and they are deleted after a time. The camera at the garage entrance showed Kathy and Kemp walking in just before 10 p.m. Kemp had his arm around Kathy's waist. Kathy rested her head on Kemp's chest. She was looking down, and Kemp was looking at her. The cameras don't record sound, only video, but it looked like Kemp was talking to Kathy. Watching the video, I couldn't tell if they were just close friends or if Kemp was helping Kathy walk as they went into the garage. The camera by the elevator in the garage captured them as they got closer to the elevator. They were the same as when they entered the garage, with his arm around her waist. When they reached the elevator, Kemp pushed the button and gently moved Kathy against the wall. He started to kiss her, but the camera didn't show Kathy's face. When the elevator came, Kemp lifted Kathy up, holding her carefully. Her arms went around his neck, and her head rested on his shoulder. He carried her inside the elevator. The camera, placed in the corner near the ceiling, showed their sides and backs as Kemp pressed 12 and stood in the center with Kathy. Then, Kathy slid down from his hold and stood on the floor. As she moved, Kemp briefly held the bottom of her dress as it rode up her body. She didn't try to fix it. Kemp quickly held her to keep her steady. She leaned into him and rested her head on his chest, eyes closed. He gently placed his hand on the front of her dress. Suddenly, they both looked toward the elevator door. The elevator was slowing down to stop at the 9th floor. Kemp pulled her dress down to cover her better, and Kathy adjusted it too. When the door opened, Kathy quickly turned her face away and hid it against Kemp's chest. A young couple waiting outside spoke to Kemp, and he pointed up to show the elevator was still going higher. They stepped back, and the door closed, leaving them alone again. When they reached the 12th floor, Kemp lifted Kathy again. Her dress was now around her waist, and she held on to him with her legs around his waist and her arms around his neck. Her head rested once more on his shoulder. He carried her to his room carefully, like someone carrying a sleepy child to bed. Her face was turned toward the camera in the hallway, which was above the elevator door so I could see her eyes were closed. The camera showed Kemp's back and head. He seemed to be either talking softly to her or kissing her neck. He used his key card to open the door and carried Kathy inside. It was hard to watch this man being close to my wife like that. If Kathy hadn't said she was drugged, just seeing the videos, I would have thought they were two people who cared for each other and were happy together. But since I knew she had been drugged, it was possible that he was taking advantage of her. From the videos, 3 things were clear. Kemp held on to Kathy all the time except when he put her down in the elevator. She stumbled, and he quickly steadied her. He never let her go after that. Was she drugged, tipsy, or just unsteady? Also, Kathy hid her face when the elevator door opened on the 9th floor. Even though she might have been drugged or tired, she tried to keep whoever was coming in from seeing her face. She is a married woman being held by a man who wasn't her husband. It seemed she turned her head to avoid being recognized, maybe by a coworker. Lastly, when the cameras showed her face, she looked calm, almost at peace, and not scared or trying to escape from Kemp. Was she so drugged that she was not able to resist, or was she waiting for something she wanted? Either way, those videos were hard to watch, but nothing in them clearly showed if what happened between them was agreed on by both or not. Sunday morning, Kathy woke up before me and made breakfast. The smell of coffee and bacon brought me out of bed. We spent the day without talking about what happened on Friday night. We decided to wait until we had test results. Kathy looked better but tired, probably from stress. I drove her to the police station, where she signed a statement for Detective Martin about the drugs and what happened. On Monday, Kathy stayed home from work. I had to go to a scheduled elevator inspection I could not miss. The inspection took until about 3 p.m. On my way home, Kathy called. "Detective Martin is coming here. She has the test results and wants to talk. She said she wanted to talk to me alone again, but I told her I have nothing to hide from you. Where are you?" "On my way home. About 20 minutes from here." "Good." She said she would be here in about an hour. Detective Martin arrived at our door at 4 p.m. She had a folder full of papers. She said to me, "I think it would be better if Mrs. Gibbons and I first look at these results by ourselves. Then we will talk about them with you, Mr. Gibbons," Kathy said. "I have nothing to hide from Keith," she added. Martin asked, "Mrs. Gibbons, do you want to change or fix anything in the statement you gave us yesterday?" Kathy shook her head no. "Okay," Martin said. "Let's go over the test results. You said, Mrs. Gibbons, that you had a drink at the bar with Mr. Kemp while waiting for your table, had wine with dinner and another drink before you left. Is that right?" Kathy nodded. "You mentioned you were not drunk, just a little tipsy. Is that correct?" Kathy said. "I don't usually drink much, so I was a bit tipsy but not drunk." Martin continued. "We tested your urine for alcohol. People react differently to alcohol, and you definitely had some in your system. But you say you were not drunk?" "Tipsy, yes, but not drunk when we left the restaurant," Kathy said. Martin went on. "Semen can stay in the body for up to 72 hours in the rectum and vagina. In the mouth, it stays for a shorter time because of the bacteria there, and if food was eaten after oral contact. But it can still be detected hours later. We found traces of semen in your vaginal, rectal, and mouth samples. It seems Mr. Kemp was in contact in all these places. The examination at the hospital showed no signs of bruising or injury inside the vagina. Since you said you were not forced and were under the influence of drugs, we would not expect to see injuries if there was no struggle. Same goes for the mouth. But it's unusual in cases like this not to find some signs of injury if there was penetration at the anus. You said that happened and we found semen there. However, the nurse who examined you saw no injury or signs of inflammation in that area. When she and I talked after your exam, she told me there was nothing to show you had anal contact, but you did. We will look at this more later. The blood and urine tests for drugs came back negative. This is strange because you said the drugs were given to you about 17 hours before we took your samples. You might have been given a drug that leaves the body quickly, but such a drug would not explain the long-lasting symptoms you told us about. You said you were still feeling mixed up the next morning. That kind of drug usually only lasts a few hours. It is possible that if a drug with a longer effect was given, the dose was very small and the drugs cleared your system before we tested you. The problem is the amount of the drug would have to be very small. If that were true, the symptoms you said you had confusion, weak muscles, and trouble remembering should have been mild and short, not as bad or long as you described. People can react to medicines in different ways because of many things, but the amount needed to cause your symptoms if you took it around 9:30 on Friday night should have shown up in the tests we did on your blood and urine the next day. We looked at the hotel room, but found nothing. It had already been cleaned, and the sheets were changed and washed, so there was no useful information. The dress we got from your office wasn't torn or damaged, but if you were drugged and didn't fight back, your dress might not have any damage. The underwear you brought had some traces of fluid, probably from the time you were with Mr. Kemp, and we also found a small amount of something like lubricant. Detective Martin asked, "Mrs. Gibbons, do you remember using a lubricant, maybe for something with Mr. Kemp?" Kathy answered, "No, I don't remember much." The detective said he had checked videos from the garage, the elevator, and when you were going to Mr. Kemp's room on the 12th floor. The videos don't clearly show anything. He might have been helping you because you looked out of it, or maybe you two were just going to his room happily. He continued with two main questions about what you said and why he asked if you wanted to change your statement. First, why didn't the tests show any sign of drugs? The tests should have found something. It's very unlikely that your symptoms came from such a tiny amount of drugs that nothing showed up. Second, why didn't the physical exam show any signs of harm or injury? Did you and Mr. Gibbons ever have a certain kind of intimate contact before? We both said no. We never had that kind of contact. The detective explained. I talked to the housekeeper who cleaned Mr. Kemp's room on Saturday. She cleans many rooms and couldn't remember that room in particular. But she said that if she ever found any mess on the sheets, towels, or bed, the hotel rules say they have to clean that room very carefully. She didn't need to do that to any rooms that morning. That, along with no physical signs of injury, suggests some kind of preparation. Mrs. Gibbons, did you do anything special to get ready for your meeting with Mr. Kemp? Kathy, upset, said, No, of course not. And it wasn't a date, just a catch-up with someone I knew from years ago. I don't like the idea you think I was there by choice. I was drugged and hurt. Detective Martin said, I'm just asking questions to make your story fit the facts. You said you went to the bathroom while Mr. Kemp ordered your drink for you. Did you use the bathroom for a bowel movement? No, I just peed. Did you have a bowel movement before you met Mr. Kemp or at any time that evening? No. Do you remember when your last bowel movement was before you met Mr. Kemp on Friday? Kathy thought for a moment and said, Sometime earlier that day. I'm not sure exactly when. Martin continued. Is it possible that Mr. Kemp prepared you in any way? Do you remember if he used any kind of cleansing method or did anything unusual before you were together? Did anything happen like that while you were in his room? I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure I didn't. Is he small in size? Martin asked. Kathy blushed, looked at me, then looked away and whispered, No, he's not small. Martin said, You knew him in college, right? Did you ever hear that he gave anyone drugs back then? Kathy shook her head, no. I asked, Why are you asking about his private parts and Kathy's bathroom habits? What difference does it make? Martin replied, I'm just trying to understand what happened to Mrs. Gibbons that Friday night. I want to fit the facts with what she told us. Martin went on. You told the nurse and me that except for feeling weak and confused from drinking, you didn't feel any pain. Is that right? Kathy nodded. Did you have any pain or discomfort afterward? Martin asked again. Kathy nodded slowly. So, you had that experience with Mr. Kemp without any preparation that you remember, no injuries, and nothing unusual happened, even though you hadn't used the bathroom all day. Is that a fair summary? Martin asked. Kathy looked worried and said, Now that you mention it, my lower back and bottom do hurt a little. I think we were together in the shower. It's all a bit cloudy, but I remember feeling some pain. Then him turning on the water to wash me and clean the area. Like I said, it's all fuzzy. I don't remember it well. Martin looked at Kathy for a moment. Okay, that might explain why the housekeeper didn't find a mess, but we still don't know why there was no sign of drugs or injuries. So what do we do now? Mr. Kemp will probably say nothing wrong happened and that it was all okay between you two. We don't have proof otherwise. No evidence of drugs or harm. Without that, we can't ask for permission to test his DNA against the samples we have. We can't even prove now that he was the one you were with. The video shows you two together. especially in the elevator and him carrying you to his room, so it would be hard for him to say it didn't happen. It really doesn't matter, Martin said. Right now, there's no proof of a crime. I'm not saying you weren't hurt, Mrs. Gibbons. Just that we can't prove it. So we are closing the case. Martin began picking up her papers. I'm sorry, this is all we can do. If you remember anything else, please call me right away. He said goodbye, apologized again, and left. Kathy and I stared at each other for a few moments. I finally said, she doesn't believe you were hurt. Kathy said, I don't care what she thinks. That man hurt me. You believe me, right? I nodded, and she seemed relieved. But I wasn't being honest. I didn't believe her. Still, I was upset, because she lied to me about going out with her ex. But now wasn't the time to talk about that. I wanted to figure out what really happened between Kathy and Alex Kemp on Friday night. I said, let me look at your phone. She looked surprised, but gave it to me. No time to erase anything. I checked her calls, texts, emails, deleted messages, and apps. Nothing. Alex Kemp wasn't even in her contacts. She might have deleted everything, but usually some signs remain if someone talks regularly with another person. There were none. That night, we had dinner, watched a movie, and went to bed. Everything seemed normal, even though Kathy was tense. On Tuesday morning, we both went to work. I decided that no matter what happened, Kemp needed to be held responsible for how he treated my wife. I was also curious about a question Martin asked, whether Kathy had done something to prepare for her meeting with Kemp. The next day at work, I had some free time. I had saved the video clips of the elevator scenes and Kemp taking Kathy to his room. I looked closely again. Kemp carried her holding the back part of her dress, which still covered her fully. In the elevator, he pulled her dress up, but the camera never gave a clear view of anything private. Most shots of her were from the side. When he carried her to his room, his back was to the camera, and she faced forward. She could have prepared herself in some way, but I couldn't see any sign of it. I moved on to another plan. Figuring out how to get back at Kemp, I searched Facebook for his wife's name. She worked as a real estate agent. Her agency's website showed her email and phone number. I made a short video of Kemp touching Kathy in the elevator. You could clearly see Kemp's face. I made a fake email address and sent the video to Kemp's wife. I thought about how to get her to open it and not just delete it as spam. I decided to write, "This is what your husband Alex Kemp does on his work trips." That would make her curious enough to watch it. I checked his hotel charges through our system. The company paid for his room. On Friday, there were no extra charges. He was probably out all day visiting clients, and he and Kathy didn't eat at the hotel that night. But he did order room service Thursday evening. He ordered 2 main dishes, a bottle of wine, and dessert. The total was $104.63. Kemp had someone with him Thursday night, and that was the same night my wife said she was showing event space for a wedding, which made her late coming home. But Kathy didn't smell like wine when she got home. Could the hotel mouthwash cover up the smell? Also, she looked like she had just taken a shower before arriving. If she was with Kemp, maybe that's why she needed it. But first, I had to deal with Kemp. After that, I'd worry about Kathy. I also checked his bill from last month when Kathy was supposed to be at her parents' Friday afternoon through Sunday. Again, on Thursday, he ordered room service, 2 main dishes, a bottle of wine, and 2 desserts this time. The bill was $127.32. I couldn't remember if Kathy said she was working late that Thursday. On Friday, when Kathy was away, Kemp didn't have room service charges. Was Kemp paying for his evenings out using company money? To be sure Kathy didn't pay for dinner with him, I looked at our credit card statements and bank account. No charges at restaurants or cash taken out. Kathy didn't pay for dinner with Kemp on Friday. I bet he used his company card for their meals and drinks. What should I do with this? Was he really foolish enough to use company money for his evenings with my wife? He charged room service on the last 2 Thursdays to his room, and the company paid for it. Maybe his company would want to know about these personal expenses. But how could I make sure they found out? It was one thing to send a video from the hotel's public areas to his wife. Since cameras are in public spots, there's no real privacy, and no real trouble if it's traced back to me. My boss might be upset, but he'd get over it. But it was a different thing to send detailed hotel bills to his company, even without my name. That could cause serious problems for me. Maybe it was legal, but I was sure the hotel management would have serious problems with it. They probably wouldn't forget something like that. I decided to tell them to look at Kemp's charges but not send copies of their hotel bills. Maybe they pay the bills without checking the details. Even if they do check and are already looking into Kemp, it wouldn't hurt to suggest that their HR and his boss look at his personal expenses. Both HR and his boss had their emails on the company website. So, I sent them a note saying Kemp's hotel room service charges looked like romantic dinners and his restaurant bills were not for work, but for dates. I also sent the suggestion anonymously through a fake email. Just to finish with Kemp, I didn't expect any reply from either his wife or his company, but both answered my emails. His wife thanked me for the information and said she had suspected Kemp was unfaithful during his work trips. She said she had talked to a lawyer and was planning to divorce him. Kemp, she said, admitted one mistake when she showed him the video proof. She believes the woman in the video is his old college girlfriend, Kathy, though Kemp won't say for sure. Can I confirm this? And can I tell her who I am? Probably not. I don't think I will reply to her, but if Kemp saw the video from the elevator, I'm almost certain he will guess it came from me. I'm okay with that. The HR at Kemp's pharmaceutical company also emailed back, thanking me for the information. They said they had started an investigation and asked if I had more information. I doubt I'll answer them either. About whether the situation between Kemp and Kathy was agreed upon or not, I really don't know much about that. Detective Martin seemed to think it was important that there was no harm and no drugs found, especially since Kathy said they didn't prepare properly. But how can anyone truly know if Kathy just decided to spend time with her ex, and if she has made similar choices before? Last month, as I said, Kathy spent the third weekend at her parents' home without me. I knew Kemp was at the hotel that Thursday and Friday. I thought about calling her parents to check if she was really there, but that would raise too many questions. Instead, I checked Kemp's stays at our hotel. I logged into the hotel intranet and looked at the company account and the reservations made for him. He had many visits to our hotels within 300 miles of his home. I looked only at stays at our hotel. He had been staying there regularly for 5 years. Each time he checked in on the third Thursday of the month and left the next Saturday morning. Unless Thursday or Friday was a holiday, then no stay that month. Kathy never went out for girls' nights if Thursday or Friday was a holiday. So, was her time with Kemp something they both agreed to or not? I really had no proof that Kathy was in his hotel room on those Thursdays when he ordered room service for 2. Beyond the fact that her girls' nights happened on the same days he stayed at the hotel, I didn't have real proof that Kathy and Kemp were spending time together on those Fridays. Except for last Friday, when Kathy said she had seen him. Was it just a coincidence? I called Bill, Marcy's husband, to ask about their girls' nights. He was at work but answered his phone. After some small talk, I said, I'm trying to learn about their girls' nights. They seem to be every third Friday of the month. Is that what you know about Marcy? Bill didn't answer right away. Then he asked, What's going on with you and Kathy? Are you both okay? Did you find out what Kathy did last Friday night? I said, I'm still trying to find out. That's why I'm asking about their girls' nights. Bill said, Marcy hasn't gone to a girls' night in months. I can't even remember the last time. Probably over a year ago. And if I'm right, it was on a Saturday night, just dinner with the girls. She was home by 9 or 10. Before that, it was maybe once or twice in many years. If you want, I can ask Marcy. I told him it wasn't necessary to bother Marcy. I said, Kathy never goes out on a girls' night on Saturdays, just Fridays, and only on the third Friday of the month. I then asked, what happened with Marcy's boss and HR? Bill explained, she went to HR and showed them the texts, flirting in their meetings for lunch and dinner. They suspended him while they look into it. They'll probably fire him. They don't really have a choice because I'll make a fuss if they don't. I asked, are you two okay? He said, I don't know. I think all 4 of them have been involved in some way. Maybe not fully with other people, but from the texts I read, Marcy was close to it. I don't know about the other wives. I'm really upset with Marcy, and she knows it. She's on a tight leash now. No more late nights at work because of urgent projects. Looks like those projects can manage themselves now. I told him to keep me updated. He said, sure. You let me know what happens with Kathy, too. We ended the call. So it seems Kathy has been spending time with Kemp for years instead of going to girls' nights. How do they talk to each other? There was nothing on her phone, and Kathy isn't someone who knows how to completely erase texts or emails. Maybe she has a second phone. Then I remembered Kathy said Kemp called her at work one day out of the blue to invite her to dinner. I thought he called her on her cell phone, not her work phone. But it would make more sense for her to talk to him on her work phone. The hotel gets a lot of calls every day. It would be almost impossible to find just their calls. So when they make plans, I figured Kathy does it from her office. I decided to check her office to see if I could find any answers. I called her to ask where she was and what she was doing. "Hi, honey, just checking in. What are you doing?" "I'm getting ready for a client. They are planning a 3-day meeting in May. They need the big room and several smaller rooms for different groups. There will be breakfast, lunch, dinner, entertainment, and rooms for the guests. It should bring a good commission. They have had meetings here before, but it's been a while. I'm figuring out their costs and looking for ways to save them money. I really want to get this booking. When will they arrive?" "It's 1:30 now, so in about an hour. At least you won't have to show them the rooms, since they've been here before." Kathy laughed. "Clients always want to see the space, no matter how many times they've been here. Also, we've made some changes since then. We put in walls that move in some of the big rooms. That should help them. They can split rooms for smaller groups if needed, which saves money. Our rooms are really nice. I always start with a tour, then come back to the office to talk about options and prices." I asked, "What happened to the couple planning the big wedding for June? The ones you saw with their parents last Thursday?" Kathy was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I haven't heard from them. If I don't hear anything by Friday, I'll call the bride. She seems to be the one in charge. Okay? Let me know when you are done with these clients, and I'll come get you." "Love you." "Love you." My office is on the 10th floor, where the engineering team works. Kathy's office is on the 2nd floor, near the event rooms. I went down there around 2:40 and saw Kathy walking 2 women and a man down the hallway to look at the space. Kathy's door wasn't locked, so I went in. I thought I had at least 20 minutes, maybe more. But what was I hoping to find? I was pretty sure Kathy didn't meet with a wedding group last Thursday. If she did, it would be on her calendar. Kathy puts every client meeting on her calendar. Her computer was on, so I opened her calendar and looked at last Thursday. Her last appointment was with a company client who needed rooms for employee training. No wedding group. She was busy in Kemp's room, having room service. I looked through the papers on her desk. Nothing that seemed important. I started opening her desk drawers. Her desk was like mine. Only one drawer at the bottom right was locked. It was a big drawer with file folders that you can lock to keep things safe. Kathy didn't have any secret papers, but the drawer was locked. That was strange. It was an easy lock, and I might be able to open it with a paperclip, but I wouldn't be able to lock it again. I didn't want Kathy to know anyone had been in her desk. Where would she keep the key? It wasn't on her key ring with her house and car keys. I had used her keys before and would have noticed. I opened the wide middle drawer and looked through the papers: hair ties, sticky notes, lip balm, breath mints, pens, and binder clips. In the front tray, under some sticky notes, I found the drawer key. Inside the drawer was a small metal box about the size of a tissue box. It wasn't locked. I took it out and opened it on her desk. Inside were 2 saline enemas, a tube of lubricant, and 2 butt plugs, one bigger than the other. I locked the drawer again, put the key back, took the metal box, and went back to my office. What should I do? I was sure I was going to divorce Kathy, but that didn't feel like enough. She had been seeing Kemp for years, probably others too. I decided to call Detective Martin. Filing a false police report is against the law, right? Martin had given me her card at the hospital, and I kept it in my wallet. I took it out and called her. She answered, "Detective Martin." "Hello, Detective. This is Keith Gibbons. You were handling my wife Kathy's case about being hurt and drugged." "Yes, Mr. Gibbons. How can I help you?" "Kathy made a false police report. I have proof that what happened between her and Alex Kemp was by choice. They've been seeing each other for years." "What proof do you have?" "First, Kathy goes out for something she calls girls' nights every 3rd Friday for years. Kemp travels through here for work. I have records showing he stays at our hotel. He comes on Thursday and leaves Saturday. I talked to one of the husbands whose wife is supposed to go to these girls' nights. There haven't been any for over a year. Kathy and Kemp meet on Fridays when she says she's out with friends. Probably on Thursdays, too. Second, I found 2 enemas, lubricant, and 2 butt plugs in her desk at work. Where are those things now? I have them. How did you get them? Did you have permission to go into her office and desk, or did you break in? I thought carefully before I answered. I left my phone charger at home. Kathy and I have the same phone model, so I went to her office to get her charger. She wasn't there. The desk drawers were not locked, and I found the enemas and some other things inside a metal box in the desk. Martin sighed and said, I don't like it when women make up stories about being attacked when it was actually agreed upon. It doesn't happen often, but when a few false stories get attention, people start thinking all reports are lies. I asked, did you not believe Kathy when she said she was drugged and attacked? There should have been drugs in her blood or urine. Also, there should have been signs of harm on her body from what she described. Martin said, that made it hard to prove in court, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. She could still have been drugged and attacked, but I knew she was not telling the truth about the drugs and attack as soon as I saw the hotel videos. The problem was, I couldn't prove it. But now, maybe I can. I asked, what was in the videos? I watched them, but couldn't tell if she was drugged, just a little drunk or very drunk. He asked, did you see the elevator tape? The part where they went up to his floor from the garage? Yes, I replied. The elevator stopped on one of the lower floors. Your wife made sure the people getting on the elevator couldn't see her face. If she was really drugged like she said, she wouldn't have cared who saw her. She might not even have noticed the elevator stopping or people coming in. She can't be so drugged that she doesn't remember much, but still be careful about who sees her with this guy. I think she drank too much, but she was not given any date rape drugs. I asked, what happens now? Did you touch anything inside the box? Did you leave your fingerprints on anything? Only the box itself, I answered. Don't touch anything inside the box. If we decide to charge her with making a false police report, she might say the items inside belong to both of you, used together. It's better if your fingerprints or DNA aren't on them. We both told you we don't do those things, I said. She might say you were just too embarrassed to tell me. Listen, keep the box safe. Don't touch anything more. I will talk to my assistant to see if we should take this case. It might be tricky to use the things you found in her desk as proof, but since you found it on your own and not because of my orders, we might still use it. There are also some issues about how the proof was handled. She paused and said, I'm just thinking out loud. The assistant will decide what to do. But I really want to do something about this. People who give false reports hurt the reputation of women who really are hurt. I'll let you know what we decide. Then we got off the phone. That afternoon, I had ended the call with Detective Martin, locking away a small metal box in my office drawer. I expected the police to take care of everything and handle my wife, but 2 days later, the system had let me down. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat as I made my way through the evening traffic. The caller ID showed Martin's name. I tapped it to answer. The district attorney decided not to move forward. Martin's voice came through, sounding tired and official. They say there isn't enough evidence to prosecute. I kept my eyes on the red brake lights ahead. I gave them the proof. The timeline, the reason, even hotel video that shows she wasn't drugged. What more could they want for a false report? They don't want a case that looks bad for them. Martin sighed, weariness clear in her voice. Going after a woman who just made a serious accusation, even if it's not true, looks bad. The DA has an election soon. He's not willing to take this on. We locked the items in evidence, but the case is over, Keith. I'm sorry. The line went dead. I didn't yell or hit anything. I just checked my mirror, signaled, and moved into the fast lane. The law was done. That meant I had to fight on my own. By the time I got home, the mental pressure was already starting. My phone rang again. It was my mother. Keith, what's going on? Her voice shook, full of worry. Kathy called us crying. She said you broke into her office and left strange things in her desk. She thinks you're not well. She's scared of you. I parked the car, the small engine ticking softly in the garage. Kathy had just received the official notice that her complaint was closed. She knew I had proof, and she knew I went to the police. Instead of leaving, she chose to strike back. trying to make me look unstable. "I'm okay, Mom. It's just a mix-up. I'll sort it out," I said, before hanging up. I entered the quiet condo. The air felt heavy. Kathy sat on the sofa wearing a loose gray sweater, hugging her knees. Her makeup was smudged like she had cried a long time. She held a tissue tightly, but didn't look up when I hung my coat. "My lawyer told me I should leave," she said softly. Her voice was carefully weak, just enough to sound scared. "He said your strange behavior is getting worse." I stood across the room, watching her carefully. "Your lawyer?" I asked. "I talked to one this afternoon," she said finally, looking up at me. Her eyes were cold and empty beneath her long lashes. "You put those things in my desk to shame me," she said quietly. "You're worried for no reason, Keith. You're trying to control me, and it's not healthy. I can't live with someone who watches me at work and tries to make me look bad for things that aren't true." She uncrossed her legs and stood up, smoothing her sweater. She folded her arms, making herself smaller. "Here's what will happen," she said firmly. "You will set up counseling for us to work on your trust problems. You will say sorry to both my parents and your parents for how you acted. If you don't, I will start divorce papers tomorrow. And with the report I'm making about your behavior, you won't get any money, and this house won't be yours." I thought fast. The family court in the U.S. often listens to the person who seems more upset or files the first papers. If we divorced now, her story would win. She'd take half my savings, our condo, and my job standing. I had no real proof of her secret relationship over the past years, just old police paperwork and a list of hotel stays. I needed time. I needed more proof. Most of all, I needed her to feel like she had won. I dropped my shoulders. I breathed out slowly, looking down at the wooden floor. Then I looked up into her eyes. I stepped forward and lifted my hands to show I was giving up completely. "You're right," I said, my voice shaking just a little on the second word. Kathy blinked, surprised that I gave in so fast. "What?" she asked. "You're right," I said again, closing the small space between us. I stopped just a step away and looked down at her. "I lost control, Kathy. The stress from work and what happened with Kemp, it made me lose my mind. When I saw those things in your desk, my mind went to the worst place. I was scared of losing you and tried to control everything. It was wrong. I'm sorry." I reached out and held her forearms gently. Her muscles were tight, expecting me to argue. But I didn't. "I will make the counseling appointments," I said, looking straight into her eyes. "I'll call my parents. I will do whatever it takes to fix this. To fix myself. Just don't leave." Kathy looked at me, trying to see if I was tricking her, but all she saw was resignation. The tightness in her jaw eased. Slowly, a small, almost hidden smile touched her lips before she covered it with a sad, kind smile. She stepped closer and hugged me. "We will get through this, honey," she whispered against my chest. "You just need help." "I know," I said softly, resting my chin on her light hair. My heartbeat slowed and felt calm. 2 hours later, we sat across from each other at the dining room table. She had cooked a nice steak and poured a glass of old red wine. The sound of silverware hit the plates in the soft light from the chandelier. Kathy laughed at a joke I made about the hotel's valet staff and took a slow, calm sip of her wine. Everything seemed peaceful. She had let her guard down. Sure, she had me under control and turned me into a quiet, easygoing husband. I watched her eat, smiling back. I was not her husband anymore. I was like a hunter watching my own home. The next morning, I called the hotel and said I was sick. At 7 a.m., I drove to a small, worn-down diner far from the hotel and our neat neighborhood. I took a seat in a back corner, looking toward the door. The air smelled like burnt coffee and cleaning chemicals. 10 minutes later, the door chimed. Bill came in. Marcy's husband looked very tired, with dark circles under his eyes. But he seemed lighter, somehow. He sat down in the red booth across from me and asked for black coffee. "Thanks for meeting me, Keith," Bill said, rubbing his face. "Things have been hard, but I think we're getting somewhere. Marcy talked to me last night. She ended things with Roger. She deleted his number right in front of me. She's acting like herself again, caring and focused. I think their marriage can be saved." The waitress put a heavy mug of coffee in front of him and walked off without saying a word. I didn't touch my water. "Bill," I said, my voice steady, "do you know what an actuary really does?" He frowned and paused mid-sip. "I am an actuary, Keith. I study risk using numbers and chances." "Good. Look at this." I pulled out an envelope from my jacket and slid it across the sticky table. Bill put his mug down and opened it. Inside was a printed chart. "What is this?" he asked, pushing his glasses up his nose. "Column A shows the last 5 years of room reservations for a pharmaceutical worker named Alex Kemp at our hotel," I said, pointing. "Column B shows the nights he ordered room service for 2 people. Column C shows the dates of your wife's monthly girls' nights over those same 5 years. Bill's eyes followed the chart. The diner felt quiet except for the soft buzz of the neon sign outside. "Third Friday of every month," Bill whispered, his finger moving along the rows. "For 5 years. Kemp is always in town then. Marcy goes out with Kathy, Joan, and April." "Marcy wasn't just having friendly lunches with her boss, Bill," I said, watching the hope leave his face, replaced by a heavy feeling of disappointment. "She's been pretending to have an excuse for my wife's actions for years. The girls' nights are part of a plan, a cover-up." Bill dropped the paper. His hands started to shake. His breathing became fast and uneven. He looked toward the door as if he wanted to run or shout but couldn't. "I'm going to go home and make her leave," he said. "No, you won't," I said firmly, making him look back at me. "If you confront her now, she'll cry, confuse you, and soon after she'll get a court order against you. The family court won't be on your side." People's feelings often win over facts, unless those facts are used very carefully. Bill swallowed hard and held on to the table tightly. He stared at the paper, now a symbol of years of pain. "So, what do we do?" he asked. "We don't face them head on," I said, leaning closer. "We take them apart from the inside. But we can't do it by ourselves. The alibi needs 4 women. To break it, we need 4 men." I tapped the paper one more time. "I have the tech access. You know the accounting. Now, we need some muscle and a plan. We're going to see Jake and Tom." Jake was a builder of tall buildings. He wore expensive suits under a dusty hard hat. He acted like money made him untouchable. April was his prize, and Jake kept a close watch on everything he thought was his. Bill and I found him at 11 a.m. on the second floor of a half-finished parking garage in the business district. The air smelled like diesel, broken stone, and the sharp buzz of welding nearby. Jake was angrily pointing his finger at a site foreman when he noticed us coming out of the grated elevator. He waved the foreman away and came toward us, his heavy boots crunching on the gravel. "Keith, Bill," Jake said, his eyes sharp under his white hard hat. "What are you doing on my site? This isn't a place for visitors." "We need 5 minutes," I said, keeping my hands relaxed. Jake looked at his gold watch. "I have a big job in 10 minutes. Make it 2. I didn't waste time. "Your wife's girls' nights aren't what they seem. She's not just having drinks with Kathy and Marcy. They're hiding the truth for each other." I said, "Your wife is not being honest with you, Jake." Jake stopped moving. The loud sounds of the construction site seemed to disappear. He looked at me for a few seconds, shocked by what I said. Then, without thinking, he grabbed the front of my jacket and pushed me back until I hit a metal support beam hard. The hit shook my teeth and made some dust rise. Bill stepped back quickly, looking worried. Jake whispered, his face very close to mine. "If you say that about my wife again, I'll make sure you regret it. Do you hear me, Gibbons?" I stayed calm. I didn't try to push him away. Slowly, I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a small black USB drive. I held it between us and said, "This has data from traffic cameras and toll booths. It covers every 3rd Friday for 2 years. It proves that April was not at Joan's house on those nights like she said. Her car's plate was seen going south on I-95, near the marina area." Jake looked hard at the little device in my hand. He was breathing fast and rough near my face. I asked quietly, "You have a hidden GPS tracker on her phone, right? A man like you wouldn't let something so important go without one. Check your phone. Look at her location history and match it to these dates. Tell me I'm wrong." Jake's grip got softer. He moved back, and wiped some dust off his jacket sleeve with shaking fingers. Then he took his phone out of his pocket, unlocked it, and opened a hidden app. He looked at the dates I mentioned. He went back and checked again. I saw the proud, tough man change. His face went pale and tense. When he looked at me again, the angry attitude was gone. Instead, there was only shame. "Who else?" Jake asked quietly, his voice weak. "All of them," Bill said, coming out of the elevator shadow. Jake put his phone away, took the USB drive from my hand, and turned to face the foreman. "Where do we find Tom?" We found Tom at 4 p.m. He was sitting alone in a dark, sticky booth at a small local bar, just 3 blocks from the high school where he taught history. He had a cheap beer in front of him. Tom was a quiet man with slumped shoulders, thinning hair, and always had traces of chalk on his worn pants. He always looked like he was waiting for someone to be angry with him. Joan made sure he felt this way. She often put down his pay, his lack of goals, and even his sense of being a man, right in front of others. We didn't even have to show Tom the papers. When the 3 of us sat down quietly across from him, trapping him in the corner, Tom looked at our faces and knew what was coming. His lower lip began to shake. Before I could take out the laptop, Tom put his head in his hands and started to cry. His soft, shaky sobs were barely louder than the country song playing on the jukebox. "She hates me," Tom said with a catch in his voice, tears dripping through his fingers onto the scratched table. "Every time she comes home from those nights out, she starts a fight. She tells me I'm worthless. She smells like fancy cologne when she gets back, and when I ask her about it, she yells at me until I say sorry. It's my fault. I don't make enough money to keep her happy." Jake looked away, clearly upset, staring at a bright beer sign. Bill swallowed hard, looking down at his own hands. I leaned forward across the sticky table and took Tom's wrist, gently pulling his hand away from his wet face. I squeezed his wrist hard enough to make him wince and look up. "Stop it," I said sharply. My voice was firm and clear in the dim room. "Crying won't fix what's broken, Tom. Facts will. Stop feeling sorry for yourself and look at this." I opened my laptop, typed in my password, and turned the screen toward him. I showed him the plans, the carefully matched schedules, the made-up alibis. "Joan isn't treating you badly because you don't earn enough," I said, watching him look over the clear facts on the screen. "She's doing it because making you feel small makes her feel safe. Someone who feels weak doesn't fight back. Are you weak, Tom?" Tom stared at the screen. He wiped his runny nose with the back of his sleeve. He took a long, shaky breath, and the shaking in his thin shoulders finally stopped. He looked at me, then at Jake, then at Bill. "No," Tom whispered. "Good," Jake said. He stood and quietly placed a $50 bill on the table. "Because we have a fight ahead of us. Let's go." An hour later, the 4 of us stood in Jake's quiet office, designed to keep sound out. The heavy wooden doors were locked tight. "Rules for this," I said, walking slowly at the long glass table. "Rule 1. Stay calm and clear. Don't fight them directly. Don't argue, don't lose control, and no quick decisions about ending things. If one of us slips up, the group gets scared. They wipe their devices clean, and we all lose a big part of what we have in family court. Got it?" 3 heads nodded together. "Here's who does what," I said, tapping the glass. "I handle tech and watching. Bill, you track the money. Jake, you buy the gear and keep things running. Tom, you act like you need extra help at home. Ask Joan for advice on your work and keep their eyes looking the wrong way." Jake pulled out a set of brass keys and dropped them on the table. They made a sharp noise. "I have a basement apartment in a business area across town. It's rented under a fake company name. No cameras watching and no papers to link it to us. That's our war room. I'm setting it up with servers, boards, and locked laptops by midnight." "Tonight is the first test," I said, looking at each man. Their eyes showed hard control. "You go home. You kiss the person who hurt you. You look her in the eyes and smile. You ask about her day. Don't show any doubt." At 6:30 p.m., I found Kathy in the kitchen. She was softly humming and cutting vegetables for a salad. The evening news played quietly on the TV in the next room. "Hi, honey," she said, turning with a small knife in her hand. She looked calm and sure, fully in control of our life. I walked up and put my hand on her lower back, pulled her close, and kissed her gently. I tasted her cherry lip gloss and smelled the light lavender of her shampoo. "How was your day?" I asked with a warm, steady voice. "Better now that you're here," she said, hiding the truth well. "Same," I said. I didn't hesitate. Neither did the others. We all passed the test. At 2:14 a.m., the red light of my clock gave a soft glow across the room. Kathy slept deeply, her back turned to me. I slipped quietly out of bed and walked to her office. Moonlight came through the blinds, making prison bar-like shadows on her closed silver laptop. I took a small USB device from my pocket, a special keylogger Jake got us. I plugged it into the back of her docking station. It clicked softly. I opened her purse, carefully took out her phone, and used a device to copy the data from her SIM card onto a blank chip in less than a minute and a half. I put the phone back exactly as I found it, lining it up perfectly. Across the city, in 3 separate homes, 3 other men were doing the same quiet operation. I stepped back into the bedroom and stood quietly by my sleeping wife. I watched her chest rise and fall slowly, her lips gently parting. The digital net was set. Now we just had to wait for the signals to move. For 7 days, we watched them work carefully. Jake's basement apartment had become the war room. The air smelled like burnt coffee and machines running hard. It was a windowless concrete bunker lined with soft foam to block sound. In the center was a big wooden table with 4 strong server towers. Above us, bare fluorescent lights flickered. Over the week, the special devices that recorded keystrokes and copied cell phone cards gathered thousands of texts, emails, and messages into our protected database. Every key Kathy, Marcy, April, and Joan pressed showed up on our screens as it happened. One Tuesday night, I sat at the main computer, scrolling through the raw data. Jake walked back and forth on the cold floor, a cigar between his teeth. Bill sat to my right, quickly checking times on another screen. Tom stood near the small kitchen, carefully cleaning the coffee machine. "Nothing?" Jake said sharply. He took the cigar from his mouth and pointed at the screens. "It's been a week. 7 days of full data capture. Look at this trash." He knocked on the glass of monitor 3. Joan: "Can you pick up almond milk?" April: "Yoga at 6 today. Don't be late." Kathy: "The chicken is in the fridge. Bake at 400. "It's too clean," I said, still watching the scrolling lines of code. "No one talks like a corporate memo with their close friends. No jokes, no gossip. It all sounds fake." "So, they're talking somewhere else," Bill said quietly, pushing his glasses up as the blue light glowed on them. "Burner phones?" "No," I said. I opened a testing window showing the phone data use where Kathy's iPhone was. "They don't need burner phones. They are hiding right in front of us." I selected one line of data and opened it to see more details. "Look at this." Bill leaned closer, squinting. "A period tracker?" "Kathy's Cycle app," I said, tapping the screen. "This app helps track dates on a calendar for 28 days, but it's using 6 gigabytes of data each month. That's almost as much as she uses on Netflix." Jake stopped pacing. Tom came over, wiping his hands on a paper towel. I focused on the app's outgoing traffic and checked the destination address with a program that studies network data. The terminal window showed a series of complicated encrypted handshake messages. "It's a fake," I said, understanding how their system worked. "It looks like a regular health app on the main screen, but inside, it's a hidden vault that connects only between devices nearby, a ES-256 encryption. Some high-end services use this kind of setup to avoid being tracked by law enforcement. The messages never go to a cloud server. They stay local and only sync when the devices are close." "Can you unlock it?" Jake asked, his voice lower. "Not without the master pin," I said, leaning back in my chair. "It's a 6-digit code you have to enter yourself. Trying to guess it too many times wipes everything clean. One of us has to watch them type it in." Jake stared at the floor, thinking hard. A small, sharp smile showed on his face. "April spends exactly 45 minutes at her bathroom mirror every morning," he said. "She texts the whole time she puts on her makeup. Give me a camera." At 2 a.m. the next night, Jake quietly climbed a step stool in his bathroom while April slept in the bed down the hall. He took apart the smoke detector on the ceiling, swapped the sensor with a tiny high-quality camera I had set up with a battery, and aimed it right at the marble vanity. A day later, Jake came into the war room and dropped a micro SD card on my keyboard. I plugged it in. We watched the silent overhead video of April typing on her phone. I zoomed in on the keypad and used a filter to make the image clearer. Her polished thumb tapped a quick sequence. 491100. I picked up the special decryption cable and connected it to the War Room server. It ran through the copied SIM data line. A message popped up on the black screen. I typed the 6 numbers and pressed enter. A green bar moved quickly across the screen. Decrypting local vault. The bar reached 100%, and silence filled the room. 5 years of private, painful conversations suddenly appeared on the 4 monitors, spilling down the screens like a waterfall of secrets. We didn't say a word. We just read. The wives didn't only talk about their secrets. They also shared detailed plans, carefully discussing how to hide everything before coming home. They passed around tips on how to create perfect alibis for trips and how to send delayed emails to their offices to make fake work emergencies. They talked about the men they had been with, giving them scores out of 10, making fun of how we looked in comparison. April said, "Kemp is a solid 8, but the new trainer at Equinox is a 10. I'm going to meet him next Friday." Kathy replied, "Tell Jake you have a work dinner. I'll make sure the reservation is set so it matches the hotel records." I looked at Tom. He was looking at old messages from Joan, sent 3 days ago. Joan wrote, "Tom cried again during a car commercial. Honestly, he's just a paycheck with a pulse now. He hardly cares anymore. I wish he would just stay at school so I don't have to see him." But this time, Tom didn't cry. He didn't shake. He quietly picked up his coffee cup and took a slow sip. The anger inside him had gone. The quiet, weak man was no longer there. "Keith," Bill said in a low, rough voice. He was staring at the 4th screen, his finger touching the glass. "Stop scrolling! Right there!" I pressed the spacebar to freeze the screen. Bill pointed to a message from April in the group chat from 2 weeks before. It said, "Moving the grain to the silo tomorrow, 5,000 total." Bill said, "I saw that phrase 3 times on the last check." His eyes moved quickly across the dates. August 12th, September 15th, October 2nd, moving the grain to the silo. Bill pushed back his chair, the wheels scraping the floor. He moved to his accounting computer. He quickly logged into a secure site linked to his and Marcy's family bank account. His fingers flew over the keyboard as he pulled up the account history from the last 3 months. October 2nd, Bill said, looking at the list. A charge for $1,250 to Zenith Wellness Spa. He checked August 12th. $1,500, charged to Aura Boutique Consulting. Bill looked at Jake. "Check your shared accounts with April. Look at those same dates." Jake opened his laptop. 10 seconds later, his jaw tightened. September 15th, $2,250 to Gala for the Arts. "It's a secret fund," Bill said. He was in full detective mode, focusing on the numbers and facts. The shock of the betrayal didn't matter as much as the clear proof of money being taken. They're not just paying for spa visits. These are strange, large amounts. Bill opened another screen to check a business ID website. He entered the codes for Zenith Wellness, Aura Boutique, and Gala for the Arts. The screen blinked. All 3 were connected to the same hidden company. Company name, Women Empower, LLC State, Delaware Registered Agent, Clara Bowles. Jake leaned closer, staring at the name. "Clara Bowles," he said quietly, surprise in his voice. "That's April's distant cousin in Wilmington. She used to be a librarian," I said. The group wasn't just a cover for cheating. It was a smart financial scam. They had been quietly moving money that belonged to married couples, our money, into a fake company in Delaware. They used fake payment machines to make the transfers look normal. That company then paid for hotel stays, prepaid phones, and other things, all without showing up on local bank records. "This is no longer just a family problem," I said, feeling the weight of their boldness like a thick, heavy blanket. "They aren't just being unfaithful. They are breaking laws about money transfer and taxes. They are stealing." "The risks are big enough for federal authorities," Bill said, tapping his phone. Jake hit the table hard. The noise bounced off the walls. "Then we expose them. We print out these messages. We take this to the police, first thing tomorrow." "No," Bill said, stopping him. "If we show this, it won't work. Keith got the main code using a hidden camera in a place where your wife should expect privacy. We got into a protected server without permission. The police will throw this out quickly. and we could get in trouble for spying. Jake held the edge of the table tight. Then what do we do? Just wait. Bill smiled with calm confidence behind his glasses. We don't use the hack itself. We use the law. As a partner, I have the right to ask for a detailed check of my joint bank accounts. I hire a licensed accounting company to do a full audit. I pay them well, and I tell them where to look. Bill looked at the three of us. I tell them to investigate Zenith Wellness. They find the linked company, Women Empower LLC, through legal means. They gather clear proof using official requests, making the audit strong and legal, no matter how we first learned about it. For 3 weeks, our war room changed from a watch post into a busy legal office. While the wives went on with their normal lives, unaware of what was coming, Bill managed the accountants. They followed the clues carefully. We spent long hours in the basement printing out the accountants' reports. The heavy printer spit out hundreds of pages filled with hard proof. Every fake bill, every tax mistake, every illegal money move, all documented clearly. I stood at the table, taking the warm stacks of paper and carefully putting them into neat black folders. The sound of the hole punch echoed in the room. I ran my hand over the smooth plastic covers, feeling the heavy weight of the information inside. We were not just getting evidence together. We were building something much bigger, something that could bring things to an end. But timing was very important. Until the official report from the forensic audit was ready, we had to keep up a dangerous act. The contrast was strange enough to make me feel dizzy. During the day, the four of us worked out of a plain concrete office, planning how to expose a federal wire fraud case. We traced offshore IP addresses, listed false invoices, and followed stolen money through hidden companies in Delaware. Then, when night came, everything changed. I would sit on the edge of our soft living room couch, pouring warm lavender lotion into my hands and gently rubbing Kathy's feet while she watched TV. Elsewhere, Jake was buying April a pair of diamond earrings to celebrate her good week at work. Bill was cooking Marcy's favorite fish. Tom was ironing Joan's clothes. We kept calm on the outside. We looked at the women who were slowly causing us pain and smiled, but it was a cold, empty smile. Kathy was very good at getting her way, and people who know how to take control notice small changes around them. She felt the quiet change in me. The nervous feeling that had been inside me since the night I found her with Kemp was gone. I was too calm, too easygoing. She didn't trust this calm. She wanted to test me. On Thursday night, Kathy turned on the shower in the master bathroom, leaving the door open just a little. Steam came out into the bedroom. I walked by to get my watch from the dresser and stopped when I saw her phone sitting right on the bathroom counter. The screen was left unlocked on purpose. As I got closer, a message appeared on the screen. It was from an unknown number. Thinking about Friday night. You taste so good. I stared at the bright words. My heart didn't beat faster. This was not an accident. The women involved used very strong secret codes to share real information. They wouldn't send unprotected messages on an unlocked phone where anyone could see. This was a trap. She wanted me to react, to rush into the bathroom and demand answers so I would show I was still the jealous, upset husband she had learned to control. I didn't touch the phone screen. Instead, I picked up the white charging cable lying on the floor and plugged it into the phone. I picked up the phone and walked to the cracked bathroom door. I knocked twice gently on the wood. Then I slid the charging phone through the small gap across the wet floor tiles. Your battery was low, honey, I said over the sound of running water. I plugged it in for you. The water kept flowing. Oh, thank you, Keith. Her voice came softly from behind the frosted glass. I turned and walked away. I did not need to see her face to know she was smiling under the shower. In her mind, she had already won. I had seen a message from another man, but was too calm, too trusting, or maybe too tired to ask questions. She felt very sure of herself. It was time to break their trust from inside. The next morning, Bill started the mental battle. Marcy came to her office and saw a plain manila envelope on her keyboard. She opened it carefully. Inside was a clear photo of the door to the hotel room where she had lunch meetings with her boss, Roger. In the corner of the photo was the exact date and time of their last meeting. No note, no demands, just proof. 3 hours later, Joan checked her old-school email. A message had come through, not caught by the spam filter. The sender was hidden. The subject was empty. The message had a very private and embarrassing fact about her current partner, something she had typed into a secret app just 4 days before. Suddenly, alarms went off. The messages we watched in our war room started flashing like lights on a Christmas tree. Joan: someone is in my email, someone knows. Marcy: I just got a real photo on my desk. They know about the hotel. April: stop talking. Both of you, don't type anything else on this network. Kathy: Le Petit Zinc. Table 4. 1 hour. Cash only. Jake, Bill, Tom, and I stood around the main screen in our war room, watching rapid-coded messages move across the system. Le Petit Zinc is a fancy French restaurant by the marina, Jake said, looking at his watch. It's busy and noisy. Hard to get a clear record. Already taken care of, I said, picking up my keys from the server. 45 minutes later, I walked through the back alley behind the restaurant. I found a waitress smoking near the trash bins. I gave her 5 crisp $100 bills and a small recorder the size of a matchbox. I told her exactly where to hide it under the ironwork of table 4. By the time the 4 women sat down and ordered their wine, we were back in our bunker. The live audio played through Jake's speakers clearly. The voices came quickly through the speakers, cutting through the background noise of clinking silverware and soft jazz music. I'm telling Bill, Marcy said, her voice shaking, and you could hear her breathing fast and hard. I have to tell him. If they have pictures, they have everything. I can act like I'm the victim. I can say Roger pushed me. If I tell first, I can save my marriage. A sharp slap sounded through the room. Someone gasped. Pull yourself together, you stupid fool, April spat, her voice harsh and full of anger. You are not saying a word to Bill. If you break the plan, the whole company will be exposed. Do you even know what federal wire fraud means? I can't go to jail, April, Marcy cried. You won't, April snapped back. But if you so much as mention this to your miserable husband, I will send the video of you with the tennis instructor to the head of your kid's school. You'll lose custody fast. Nod if you understand me. The room was silent except for Marcy's ragged breathing. This is blackmail. Kathy's cold voice came next. Someone found the company's secret books. A rival of Jake's. Someone in Kemp's group. They want money. We wait for their demand, pay it from the secret fund, and tighten things up. The husbands don't know anything. I practically showed Keith I was cheating on him last night, and he still offered to charge my phone. They are just money machines. They're obstacles. They're nothing. I looked around the war room. Jake's eyes were hard and cold like stones. Bill's jaw was clenched so tight it looked like it might crack. Tom stood very still, his face unreadable. We listened to our wives talk about us not as people or partners, but as animals to be used and thrown away. Any feeling we had left, any small doubt about what we were about to do to our children's mothers, was gone in that dark basement. Turn it off, Jake said quietly. I pressed the button to stop the audio. I need the last set of offshore account numbers to finish the federal document, Bill said, turning back to his computer. April's laptop has the registry keys for Delaware, Jake said, pulling his chair closer to the screen. He opened remote access, logging into April's secured MacBook through the copied IP address. His fingers moved fast over the keyboard, starting the data transfer. A progress bar showed on the screen. Exporting 14 gigabytes, 32%. Outside, a low rumble of thunder shook the basement's foundation. A sudden strong storm had come in from the coast. The fluorescent lights above flickered, dimmed to a soft orange, and then hummed back to life. On Jake's screen, the progress bar stopped. Connection interrupted. What happened? Bill asked, standing up. The local weather, I said, moving behind Jake's chair and checking the network details. The internet hub down the street got a power spike. Your VPN dropped out. It only dropped for 3 seconds, Jake said, his hands moving over the keyboard. He started the reconnect process. The progress bar moved again. 88%, 95%. Complete. Jake sighed and rubbed the back of his neck. Got the files, shutting down the link. Wait, I said, leaning closer to the glass screen. A tiny red string of code had appeared in the terminal's history log. I highlighted the text. Jake stared at the red letters. Oh no, he whispered. What is it? Tom asked, stepping nearer. When the VPN dropped, I said, feeling tight inside. The data transfer showed up briefly on April's real IP address. That triggered a warning on her MacBook's firewall. Can you delete it? Bill asked. No, Jake said, pushing away from the desk. April's real estate company put very strong security on her computer. The log can't be changed. Her IT guy, David, checks the system every Saturday morning for any signs of spying. I looked at my watch. It was 6 p.m. on Friday. We have about 12 hours, Jake said, looking at us all. At 6 a.m. tomorrow, April's IT guy will check the logs. He will see a big unauthorized data transfer and trace the IP back. Right to your home network, I finished. Our digital net was broken. The spiders were about to find they were trapped. Saturday morning, 6:02 a.m. I sat in the dim blue light of the living room, staring at my encrypted tablet. The condo was completely quiet, except for the soft hum of the fridge. Upstairs, Kathy was still sound asleep. On my screen, April's hidden system came to life. Her IT guy was early. April, 911, 911, 911. David just checked my laptop. He found a big data transfer. He found the IP. The cursor blinked. 10 seconds passed in tense silence before the reply came. Kathy. Traced to where? April. Jake's private network. They know. They have the records. They have everything. A new message from Marcy appeared, full of typos and panic. Oh my God, what do we do? What do we do? Bill is sleeping right next to me. Kathy. Quiet. Listen carefully. If they have the records, we are in serious trouble. They are putting together a case. We need to stop them before Monday. Destroy these phones now. Start the plan. Joan. The plan for the scene? Kathy. Yes. Towels and frozen oranges. Smash the plates. Break a chair. Make it look like there was a fight. Call 911 at exactly 8 a.m. We act first. The connection ended. The screen went black. The local network was down. I closed the tablet and slipped it into my leather bag, calm as ever. Towels and frozen oranges. It was the perfect trick for fake claims of home abuse. Hitting yourself with a frozen orange wrapped in a thick towel makes deep bruises without breaking the skin or leaving marks from a weapon. To a nurse or a police officer, it looks just like being hit by a fist. It was the ultimate move in a nasty divorce. I got up, grabbed my keys, and left the house without looking back. I drove straight to the hotel. I needed a public place with many cameras to record exactly where I was, how I was acting, and the fact that I had no blood anywhere at 8 a.m. sharp. By 8:45, I was sitting at my desk on the 10th floor of the engineering department, calmly reading a guide for taking care of the building's heating and cooling systems. Suddenly, the heavy double doors at the end of the hall opened. 2 police officers in uniform walked into the room. Their hands rested near their belts. The quiet talking stopped right away. The only sound was the soft noise from the computer servers. Keith Gibbons? The lead officer asked, his voice loud and clear against the bare walls. I didn't look surprised. I closed my folder, pushed my chair back, and stood up slowly, showing my hands clearly. Yes, officer. Step away from the desk. Keep your hands where I can see them, and walk toward us. I did as they said. They didn't put handcuffs on me, but the way they stood and moved made it clear I was being led somewhere. The second officer held my left arm tightly, but without hurting me. Walking through the hotel lobby felt like facing a carefully planned challenge of stares and quiet whispers. The valet workers stopped what they were doing. The front desk staff stared at me. My phone buzzed with messages from HR. Kathy had told the hotel about the police visit as soon as she finished her call with 911. Outside in the bright morning sun, the lead officer gave me a thick manila envelope. You have been served with a temporary restraining order, the officer said, his voice cold, sure he was looking at a dangerous man. You must stay at least 500 feet away from your home, your wife, and where she works. If you share a vehicle, you need to give up your keys in 10 minutes. Sign here. I took the pen, clicked it, and signed the paper. I took the keychain from my pocket, pulled off the SUV fob, and dropped it into his hand. Then, I walked 2 miles down the highway to a strip mall ATM. I put my debit card into the machine and tried to take out $20. The screen said, "Transaction declined. Account frozen. By law, as soon as the temporary restraining order was filed, all our shared accounts were locked to protect the person making the claim." It felt like I was cut off for good. I took out my phone and called Jake. "Where are you?" I asked. "Route 9 Motel." Jake's voice was tense, holding back anger. "Room 114, bring all the cash you have." The motel room smelled like old cigarette smoke, damp walls, and cheap bleach. The floral wallpaper was peeling at the edges. The four of us sat in the small room, feeling heavy from everything that had happened that morning. Tom sat on the edge of the old mattress, his knees shaking fast. His face looked pale. "She broke the coffee table," he said quietly, his eyes fixed on a dark spot on the carpet. "The police came to the school while I was getting ready for debate club. They took me out in front of the kids. I'm going to lose my teaching license. You can't work with children with a domestic violence order. She's taken everything from me." Jake stood by the window, looking outside through the old blinds. His knuckles were red and scratched from punching the wall near the bathroom door. "April hired a private investigator yesterday," Jake said, throwing a crumpled paper on the small table. "Look at page 4 in the order." I picked it up. Attached was a sworn statement with blurry pictures taken from a distance. The photos showed the four of us standing in an alley near the war room, holding big duffel bags and sharing a drink to celebrate opening the vault. "They told the judge we were part of a violent, hateful group," Bill said, sitting stiffly in a plastic chair, tapping a broken pen on his knee. "They said the basement was a base for coordinated illegal acts. And since family court favors the safety of the person who made the claim, the judge approved it fast. We lost our homes, our money. I can't see my daughters." Jake kicked the table hard, making it slide across the cracked floor. "I have $40 million in cash, and I can't even buy a sandwich because a judge froze all my accounts based on the word of a woman who hurts herself to make it look worse." My phone buzzed in my pocket. Just one message lit up the screen. The message came through the official legal email system set up by Kathy's expensive divorce lawyer. I opened it. There was no complicated legal language. Just one simple sentence, typed by Kathy herself and sent through her lawyer to reach me clearly. "Checkmate. You get nothing. Enjoy the motel." I stared at the screen. The boldness of the message shone out. They truly thought the fight only happened where they made the rules. They believed they had beaten us because they used the family court system, a place made to use emotions and quick moves as weapons. I slowly put down the phone. A cold, sharp smile formed on my face. Jake stopped walking back and forth. Tom stopped bouncing his knees. Bill stopped tapping his fingers. They all looked at me, confused by how calm I was. "What's so funny?" Jake asked, his voice full of anger. I didn't answer right away. I walked over to the cheap dresser, grabbed my leather bag, and placed it on the bed beside Tom. I opened the main section. I reached past my laptop and found a hidden pouch inside, sealed with Velcro. I pulled it open and took out 4 heavy military-style encrypted hard drives. I dropped them on the bed with a heavy sound. "They played a perfect game," I said, my voice low, steady, and full of finality. "They made the first move. They used the system's bias. They took our homes, our money, and our good names." I held one hard drive, turning the cold black metal in my hand. "But they didn't really understand how this fight works," I said, looking Jake straight in the eyes. "Family court favors tears, Jake. It favors whoever cries loudest and files papers fastest, so we won't fight them in family court." Bill stopped tapping his pen. His eyes moved to the hard drives. "The detailed audits, the hidden transfers, the bank fraud." "Every single page," I said. I threw the drive back on the pile. "We have proof, checked by outside experts, of a multi-million-dollar crime ring breaking federal laws. We have an audio recording of Kathy planning to pressure Alex Kemp to hide their secret money. We have records showing April bribed a city official with a $20,000 watch." Tom swallowed hard, staring at the black metal cases. "So what do we do now?" "We change where the fight happens," I said, closing the bag. "No more divorce lawyers. We bring in the tax investigators. We bring in the crime team that handles big financial cases. Tomorrow morning, at the temporary alimony hearing, we plan to let them act like the weak, broken victims." I threw my bag over my shoulder, feeling the heavy weight of their ruin resting against my hip. "And then," I whispered, "we make our move." 9 hours later, the big wooden doors of courtroom 4B opened wide. The courthouse air conditioning was cold and harsh, like a meat locker. The room was full, more people than seats. Legal helpers, quiet clerks, and court reporters all came to see the drama of 4 ex parte restraining orders happening at once. The air smelled like floor cleaner and nervous sweat. At the petitioner's table sat our wives. They had planned their appearance carefully. Gone were the fancy dresses, perfect makeup, and expensive haircuts. Kathy wore a dull, too big, beige cardigan. Her hair was tied back in a tight, messy bun. April, Marcy, and Joan looked the same. Dark circles under their eyes, slouched shoulders, and shaky, alert postures, like women who had been through something very hard. Behind them stood their lead divorce lawyer. His name was Sterling. He was sharp in a striped suit and made his living breaking wealthy husbands down. He didn't even look up when we came in. He didn't need to. He thought we were the broken, poor men he had kicked out less than a day ago. We walked down the middle aisle. We didn't shuffle or look at the floor. Jake had called his tailor at 4 a.m., paying extra for a fast job. The 4 of us wore perfectly made dark suits. Our shoes shined like mirrors. We stood straight and calm, almost like a team ready to strike. We didn't bring family lawyers. On my right was Marcus Vance, a top criminal lawyer whose fee was more than Sterling's whole retainer. On my left was Special Agent Reynolds, a tough, quiet investigator from the IRS. He wore a simple gray suit with his federal ID clipped to his belt. We sat down at the respondents' table. I looked straight at Kathy. For a moment, her act slipped. Her brow wrinkled, and a tiny hint of real confusion showed on her face when she saw no fear in my eyes. Then she quickly looked down at the shiny wood table and forced her shoulders to shake. Judge Harrison, a silver-haired man with many years of family court experience and no patience for nonsense, knocked his wooden block to start. "Let's get this done," Harrison said with a sigh, pushing up his glasses. Sterling went straight to the podium. He fixed his tie, held the edges of the stand, and began a strong, carefully planned speech. "Your Honor, we are here today to protect these 4 brave women," Sterling said, his voice loud and full of feeling. "For years they have faced control over their money and constant fear. This has led to serious problems, as shown in the papers we've given. My clients are afraid for their safety. We ask the court to make these restraining orders permanent and to stop the other party from accessing joint funds to prevent more harm." Kathy wiped her face, letting one tear fall. April looked down quietly. Judge Harrison nodded with understanding, writing something on his legal pad. Then he looked at the other side. "Does the other counsel have a response?" he asked. Marcus Vance stood up but didn't go to the podium. He buttoned his suit jacket and stepped out so everyone could see him. "Your Honor, we do not oppose the restraining orders," Vance said in a calm, deep voice that filled the room. "Actually, we support them. My clients want to stay far away from people who are now under federal investigation." Kathy froze, the tear halfway down her cheek. Sterling blinked, surprised. "Excuse me?" Judge Harrison said with a frown, lowering his pen. Vance walked to the judge's bench carrying a heavy book, not a small notebook. He set the thick 500-page audit down hard on the desk. The sound echoed through the room. "I am adding the company Women Empower LLC to the official record," Vance said, looking directly at Sterling. "This company is linked to serious money problems, and all the people running it are the petitioners here." I watched as Kathy's face turned pale. Everyone at the petitioner's table grew quiet and looked shocked. Marcy gasped quietly, then covered her mouth. Vance snapped his fingers at me. I stood and went to the AV cart at the side of the room. I plugged in Jake's secured flash drive. The 4 big screens around the courtroom lit up. Bill's detailed spreadsheets appeared on the monitors for all to see. The clear and official record of our shared money moving into a secret fund was shown in sharp, clear numbers. "As you all can see on the screens," Vance said as he walked carefully across the room, "the people filing the case often made up fake home expenses, spa visits, consulting fees from fancy shops, charity events. Every dollar was sent through fake business accounts right into their hidden company overseas." Vance pressed a button on his remote. The screen changed to the list of money going out. "So, where did the money go?" Vance asked the quiet room. $5,000 to a shell company linked to a well-known service in Miami, $8,000 sent as hard-to-track online payments to phone companies, and a repeated charge labeled legal fees. Vance turned away from the judge, looking directly at the group of women in the room. We have given the court secret messages from this illegal group. To show who these so-called victims really are, I offer Exhibit C as proof. I pressed play on my laptop. The sound was clear, taken straight from a voice message Kathy had sent to the other women just 2 weeks before. Kathy's voice, sharp, careful, and full of anger, came loud from the speakers. I told him exactly how it would go, Kathy said in the recording, sharing what she told Alex Kemp. I told him if he didn't send $5,000 to the LLC by midnight, I would send fake reports to his company's HR and his wife. He paid. He's scared. We control him. The courtroom buzzed with whispers, spreading like a wave. Judge Harrison hit his gavel many times, his face turning dark red. Kathy sat very still. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. Her big beige sweater now looked less like fashion and more like a tight jacket. April stared ahead with wide, shocked eyes. Threats across state lines, Vance said calmly over the noise. He pressed the remote once more. A scanned receipt appeared on the screens. And last, Exhibit D, a receipt for a $20,000 watch, bought with the LLC money by April. The watch was given as a gift to a city official to help get a business permit for her company. This is federal bribery. Sterling, their expensive lawyer, no longer looked at Vance. Instead, he stared at his clients with a face full of pure shock. He was a family court lawyer who usually worked on money support, child care, and dividing property. He had just found out that his clients had lied in a sworn statement and had put his whole law firm in the middle of a serious federal crime case. Order! Order in my court! Judge Harrison shouted, standing up from his chair. The room went completely quiet. The judge looked down at the petitioner's table, his eyes full of anger reserved for those who disrespect the court. You came into my courtroom and promised under oath that you were in real danger, Judge Harrison said, his voice low but filled with strong anger. You used the help of this court, help meant only for true victims, as a cover for breaking federal laws. He picked up his gavel. The temporary orders you were given are canceled immediately, the judge said, hitting the block with a loud sound. The freeze on the other side's money is lifted right now. Judge Harrison looked toward Special Agent Reynolds, who nodded quietly. This court can't handle cases of fraud, threats, or tax crimes, the judge went on, staring hard at the wives as if his eyes weighed heavily on them. I am sending everything about your serious lies to the tax office and the district attorney's office. Court is over. Sterling didn't wait for the judge to leave. He stood up, his hands shaking a little as he gathered his papers and pens into his briefcase. He quickly snapped it closed. Mr. Sterling, April said urgently, grabbing his sleeve. Her voice was tight and full of worry. What are you doing? You have to fix this. Sterling pulled his arm away as if she might bring trouble. He then told the court clerk, Let it be clear that I am officially asking to stop being the lawyers for these clients because we cannot work together and because they have lied under oath. Sterling didn't look back. He walked quickly up the center aisle and pushed open the heavy wooden doors, leaving them behind. The wives sat alone at the big wooden table, completely open and unprotected. The truth of their situation finally hit them hard. Joan let out a sharp, scared cry, holding her stomach. April stood up, grabbing her purse, her eyes moving quickly toward the exit. We need to go, April whispered, pulling Kathy by the arm. We have to get to the airport, now. They rushed away from the table, almost pushing past the wooden barrier that separated the court area from where the spectators sat. Special Agent Reynolds stepped away from our table and calmly stood in the middle of the aisle. He didn't reach for a weapon or raise his voice. Instead, he pulled a stack of folded white papers from the inside pocket of his plain gray suit. Each paper had the official seal of the United States federal government. He handed the top one to Kathy. She took it without thinking, her hands shaking so much the paper made a noise. Catherine Gibbons, April Marcy Joan, Agent Reynolds said in a dull, official tone that showed he was serious. You are given federal grand jury subpoenas. You must give your passports to the federal marshal's office by 5 o'clock today. If you try to leave the state, you will be caught and held by federal authorities. Kathy stared at the paper in her hands. She gasped quietly, her breath catching as if the courthouse walls were closing in around her. She looked up, her scared eyes meeting mine across the room. I didn't smile or feel pleased. I just looked at her calmly, like someone watching a trapped spider. The big oak doors of courtroom 4B closed behind us, softening the loud noise of the crowd, but the real trouble was happening just outside in the courthouse hallway. The girls' night group fell apart in seconds. When the distant threat of federal jail turned into cold, hard papers, their friendly act broke down quickly. They became like wild animals stuck in a burning cage. "This was your idea," Marcy yelled, her voice sharp as it bounced off the high walls. She grabbed April's coat tightly. "The LLC, the bank accounts, everything. You said it was safe." "Let go of me," April screamed back, pushing Marcy into a heavy ashtray on the floor. Sand spilled everywhere. Joan stepped forward and slapped Marcy hard enough to make a loud noise. "You were the one who wanted to hire the investigator. You brought all this on us," Joan shouted. Kathy didn't join the fight. She stood frozen by the wall, holding the federal papers tightly as she watched her friends argue and fight. She looked at the big courtroom doors. She looked at the agent standing quietly down the hall. She had no friends left. No options. Her eyes moved quickly until they met mine again. I stood about 10 feet away, my hands resting loosely in my pockets. Bill, Jake, and Tom stood beside me. We watched the scene unfold with calm, as if watching a building carefully taken down. Kathy stumbled forward. The proud and sly woman who had mocked me on a secret recording was gone. Her knees gave out before she could reach me. She fell onto the hard floor and slid the last few feet until she was against my legs. She held onto my pants tightly, her knuckles white, tears soaking the dark fabric. "Keith, please," she cried, her voice breaking. She tried to use every emotional trick she had left. "Please, stop this. You know me. Underneath it all, you know who I am. Remember our condo. Remember our life. Remember our love. Don't let them take me away. Please." I looked down at her. My heart beat steady and calm. I didn't feel anger or sadness. I saw the woman I had married like a scientist, looking at a dead bug pinned on a board. Slowly, I took her fingers off my pants one by one. I smoothed the wrinkles in my trousers. "You seriously underestimated my patience," I said softly, my voice as cold as the floor beneath her. I stood up, turned my back, and walked down the hall. Jake, Bill, and Tom walked with me. We didn't look back. Kathy's crying echoed behind us, getting quieter with each step. It stopped completely when the heavy glass doors of the courthouse closed behind us. The federal system works slowly, but it works well. In the next months, the Department of Justice took over Women Empower LLC and sold all its fake assets. Because we started the audit, hired lawyers quickly, and helped as whistleblowers, the U.S. Attorney's Office gave us full legal protection. We kept all our clean, shared property. Knowing the digital evidence was certain and facing many bank subpoenas, the wives' lawyers quickly tried to settle. Kathy and April, called the leaders of the group by the government, admitted to 2 counts of fraud and 1 count of tax evasion. The judge gave them 4 years in a federal prison in Danbury. Marcy and Joan helped the prosecutors. They avoided prison, but got 5 years of probation and had to pay large fines. The damage was complete. Bill and Tom finished their divorces within weeks and gained full custody of their children. Marcy and Joan ended up broke, kicked out from their social groups, and couldn't find work in their fields because of their serious crimes. Things turned out worse than they imagined. The hotel chain fired Kathy the day after the courtroom incident. To protect their image, the company took legal action against her for hurting their reputation. At the same time, my secret report about Alex Kemp's misuse of company money at the hotel became the focus of an internal investigation. Kemp was quietly let go by his pharmaceutical company and went through a tough divorce. Because I had revealed a big problem at the hotel, the general manager called me to his office. Instead of firing me for looking at the security cameras, he gave me a promotion. I became the regional director of engineering. Now I had master keys and security access to 5 different tall buildings in the area. 6 months passed. The air in the private VIP room of the Grand Havana room smelled like old wood, fine tobacco, and quiet success. Outside, noise was blocked by thick walls. I sat in a tall leather chair, cutting the end off a dark cigar. To my left, Bill was tapping on an encrypted tablet, checking some new financial plans. Across from me sat Tom, sitting straight with a glass resting on his knee. Jake stood by the bar, pouring 4 glasses of a 20-year-old Macallan whiskey. He handed them out, but didn't sit down. The soft amber light made his eyes look sharp and serious. "The system is stacked against men," Jake said calmly. "It's made to take away everything: money, respect, power, using tricks and sudden attacks. It wants us to play fair, while others use any dirty moves they like." He took a slow sip of his drink. "But we proved something important. With enough money, better technology, and firm discipline, we can turn the system to work for us. We didn't just get through it. We set the rules for their downfall." I lit my cigar, taking in the thick, smoky air. "Where are you going with this, Jake?" I asked. "I started a new company this morning," Jake said, setting his glass down. "Not a group for support, not a therapy club, a secret, high-level private intelligence agency. The Vanguard." Bill looked up from his tablet. Tom leaned forward. "The goal is simple," Jake said, tapping the heavy crystal against the wood. "We help wealthy men deal with cheating, harmful, or blackmailing spouses. We give them solid legal and financial tools to fight back. You handle the spying and catching digital tracks, Keith. Bill tracks the money hidden offshore. Tom puts together the mental profiles and creates distractions. I buy the special gear and take care of legal matters with Vance. We become the team we needed 6 months ago," Bill said quietly, already thinking ahead. "Exactly," Jake agreed. Before anyone could celebrate, a soft knock came at the heavy oak door. "Come in," Jake said. The door opened. A man stepped in. He wore a perfect dark suit, and his watch shined on his wrist. But his pale face and shaking hands showed he was not well. He closed the door behind him carefully. "Dr. Aris," Jake said calmly, motioning to the empty leather chair opposite me. "Marcus Vance said you would contact us. Please sit down." The brain doctor didn't sit right away. He moved to the table in the center. His breathing was fast and uneven. He took a heavy, matte black USB drive from his pocket. He set it on the polished wood as if it was dangerous. "Vance told me you are the only ones who can handle this," the doctor said, his voice shaking with fear I recognized at once. "Handle what, doctor?" I asked, letting out smoke slowly. He swallowed hard, eyes moving between us. "My wife isn't just seeing her personal trainer. I put a keylogger on her computer, just like Vance said. I saw her hidden internet history," he said, pointing with a shaking finger to the USB drive. "She is searching on the dark web," the doctor whispered. Sweat showed on his forehead. "She talks to someone in Eastern Europe. She is trying to get poisons that are hard to trace and act like a heart attack. I have a $15 million life insurance policy. She isn't planning to leave me. She wants to harm me." The room went very still. The danger had just moved from cheating to something much worse. Jake looked at Bill. Bill looked at Tom. Tom looked at me. I took a slow, calm puff from my cigar. The glowing tip shone bright in the faint light. I reached across the table and took the cold, encrypted USB drive. The rush of the chase came back strong and sharp in my veins. "Please have a seat, doctor," I said calmly, leaning back in the leather chair. "You won't die, but she will wish she didn't have to face what's coming. Thank you very much for staying with us through this intense story until the very end. If there is one important lesson from Keith's story, it is this: lies and tricks cannot stand when faced with strong self-control and respect for yourself. Wanting revenge is normal when you have been hurt badly, but real success comes from taking back your strength, stepping out of the dark, and refusing to be hurt anymore. We all come across times when life feels unfair, especially when those we trusted the most seem to have lied or betrayed us. But with strong will, clear thoughts, and good friends by your side, you can always build a strong future from the broken parts of your past. I would love to know what you think about the final part of the story. Did the wives get what they deserved? Which of the husband's plans did you find most clever? Please share your thoughts about the people in the story in the comments below. And if you like this story full of secrets, lies, and careful plans, please press the subscribe button to join the Cheating Heart Stories channel. We have many more exciting mysteries waiting for you.